blessed. Hey, yes, I am blessed. Oh, nana, oh, nana. So blessed. Oh, nana, oh, nana. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. Oh, nana. My money they elevate. Aye, aye. I want to know they my DNA. Aye, aye. Cause I am born of the world, and whoever is born of the world is a conqueror. Aye, aye. I am more than a conqueror. Aye, aye. And the lines are falling out. Aye, aye. In praise and blessing. Aye, and your grace is extremely evident. Oh, aye, aye. I am blessed. Oh, nana, oh, nana. So blessed. Oh, nana, oh, nana. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. I am blessed. Oh, nana, oh, nana. So blessed. Oh, nana. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. I should say my mind is a prayer. I will go come and say my life will remain the same. Oh no. I sort of do the one. There's no way I never come up with a testimony. Oh yeah. People are falling over themselves to favor me. Now every day I the elephant. I shine. And there's nothing that the devil can do. Oh, you got nothing on me. I am blessed. Oh, nana, oh, nana. So blessed. Oh, nana. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. Oh, can sing. I am blessed. Oh, nana, oh, nana. So blessed. Oh, nana, oh, nana. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. Oh, nana. This year, everything I touch is blessed. Good morning. Stagnation is far from me. I see abundance everywhere. People are falling over themselves to favor me. Now every day I elevate. Everything I touched, I'm blessed. And there's nothing that the devil can do. Oh, you got nothing on me. I am blessed. Oh, nana, oh, nana. So blessed. Oh, nana. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. Oh, nana. I am blessed. So blessed. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. Good morning. I'm going to play that again. Just testing the sound and everything. Good morning, Everton. I'm going to play that number again. Good morning. Okay, here we go. I am blessed. So blessed. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. We're blessed this morning. Because I am born of the world, and whoever is born of the world, he's a conqueror. He's a conqueror. I am more than a conqueror this morning. I am blessed. So blessed. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. I am blessed this morning. Are you blessed? So blessed. I lay my hands
Everything I lay my hands on, blessed. Woo! I know Denise is here. Come and dance to some Afro beats with me. We're going to be making our affirmations in a minute. Woo! Hey! I'm shining. The devil can't do, or the enemy can't stop me. Woo! I'm blessed. Woo! Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. I am blessed. Woo! So blessed. Everything I woo! Everything I touch is blessed. Everything I touched is blessed. Woo! Woo! People falling over to bless me. I'm elevating every day. Woo! The devil can't stop me. I'm blessed. So blessed. Woo! Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. I am blessed. Woo! So blessed. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed. I think Denise is playing her guitar. Oh my God. I've added her in. I just want to see that guitar being played. Woo! I like your outfit. Denise is coming on at 9:30, but I just saw that guitar and I thought I've got to get her.
I can't actually play it. It's just for show.
It's a pose.
I used to be able to. I haven't been practicing.
Denise is joining us at 9:30, but I just saw that guitar and I saw that headgear and I thought I've got to get her on. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing this morning? We're playing some Afro beats. We're making some declarations this morning, and we're putting it out there to the universe that actually we are actually blessed this morning. That's what we're saying. We're saying that we are blessed this morning. So Denise is going to be joining us at 9:30 this morning. Denise Wise. She is an artist, as you know, a recording artist, and she's also an author. And so we're going to be doing this show every month. We're going to be doing this show and we're going to be supporting those who are recovering from trauma. So those people that have had perhaps troubled childhood or have gone through a series of events that has impacted on their life's journey and they have actually encountered some sort of trauma. So we're going to be doing this show once a month just to support those. And so we are streaming live on Facebook Live and also on YouTube, my YouTube channel, Angela Lee. And we're also streaming live on ellensoulradio.com. So keep it locked. I'm busy posting here this morning. And before we start the show, as usual, we're going to be doing our positive affirmations this morning. So join me this morning to do our positive affirmations. Do post the show for anyone overcoming trauma. And particularly, we've had lots of deaths in society. That's traumatic. People grieving. That's traumatic. People have gone through so many eventualities in life. Some people have suffered from COVID. That's traumatic. People have lost their kids to knife crime. That's traumatic. Some people have died from cancer, any other illnesses. That's traumatic. Some people have gone through a life change. That's equally traumatic. So this morning, we're going to be talking about how you can overcome trauma this morning. We're going to give you some tools and techniques. However, we have veterans that have, still going through trauma, and people that are still recovering from the COVID-19 virus. That's quite traumatic as well. And so this morning, keep it locked to the show. It's the Angela Lee Show, and we are streaming live from Facebook Live, my YouTube channel, Angela Lee. So do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Good morning, Ian Topper. Long time, eh? How are you doing, Ian? How are you doing? And so do subscribe to my YouTube channel, support the sister. How are you doing this morning? I just want to say good morning to my sweetie. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, lovey. And we had a good time partying. I tell you, I never knew that I still had it in me. My knees actually, stood the test of time. And so, good morning. Welcome to the Angela Lee Show. And we're talking about how you can overcome traumatic abuse. And I tell you, it's long, isn't it? And particularly in light with what we've heard on the Sky News recently in terms of all those people that have suffered from abuse from religious settings, particularly. How shocking. And I know that Denise Wise is going to be joining me later on, and she spoke with us before on another previous show, has spoken at length in terms of the impact of her traumatic experience within the Jehovah's Witness, and she shared that with us a couple of weeks ago. And I have been horrified with the accounts of what the report has actually highlighted in terms of those people that have suffered abuse in religious settings, that have kept it a hush, hush. And so we're here to expose that on the show this morning. You know how we do. We keep it real. But before we start the show this morning, we're going to be doing our positive affirmations as we always do this morning. And so for those of you that have just woken up this morning, wake up with me this morning and let's do our positive affirmations with me this morning. It's so important to start our day on a positive note, isn't it? So important. I've done my yoga, I've done my meditation, I've done my stretches. What have you done this morning? How have you woken up this morning? It's so important to start our day on a good note, because how we start our day, that's how it's actually going to transpire. And so if we don't start our day on a positive note, guess what? It's not going to end up really good, is it? Ian is saying, oh, I'm good. He's here. Yeah, long time, Ian. How you doing? Long time friend, Ian Topper. Good morning to those listening on ellensoulradio.com over the airways. Good morning to you. And also good morning to those on Facebook Live. Good morning to those also listening on my YouTube channel, Angela Lee. So don't forget to subscribe. I keep telling you about that. Subscribe, mate. And also those who are listening live on StreamYard. Good morning to you. So if you're sitting down or lying down, here we go. Let's take a deep breath in. Inhale and inhale out. Please share the show for me. And exhale out. Another deep breath in. Inhale and exhale out. And breathing is so important in terms of our wellness, in terms of keeping the life balance. And let's take another deep breath in. Inhale. And exhale out. And let's get ready to do our positive affirmations this morning. Today I choose me. Today I choose moi. I choose to create an atmosphere of peace and safety for myself. I do not blame myself for my childhood experiences or trauma. Boundary settings helped me to create a safety within my life. My mind, body, and spirit belongs to me. Love and tranquility surrounds my interactions and my decisions today. I'm going to say that one again. That's a lovely one, isn't it? Love and tranquility surrounds my interactions and my decisions today. I replace hate, anger, agitation with others with intentional and positive interactions. Let's say that one again. I replace hate, anger, agitation with others with intentional and positive interactions. I release the feelings of isolation. I release the feelings of isolation. I release the feeling of guilt, hurt, and shame. My abuse, traumatic experiences do not define who I am as a person. Even though I am in pain, I truly and deeply love and accept myself. I allow myself to accept positive comments and thoughts about myself, about me. I deserve to be respected and treated with love, and I'm open and receptive to compliments. And so if you want to compliment me this morning, I'm open and I'm receptive to compliments this morning. And you know, it's so difficult sometimes for those who have experienced traumatic abuse, that when someone says, you know, wow, you know, Ange, you look great, you downplay it and you struggle to receive that compliment. So if you want to compliment me this morning, feel free. Today, I comfort my inner child. Today, I comfort my inner child. My inner child awaits to be acknowledged. So we're not going to dismiss our inner child. We're going to acknowledge our inner child. My value is just as significant as any other person. I'm going to repeat that. My value, how we value ourselves, is so important. And it's just as significant as any other person. I am significant. I am valuable. I am worthy. Setting firm boundaries come easy for me. Setting firm boundaries come easy for me. And that's our positive affirmations this morning for those who are listening on the airways on lnsoulradio.com and also on my YouTube channel, Angela Lee. Remember to subscribe. And also we're streaming live on Facebook Live and on StreamYard. We've done our positive affirmations this morning. And I was playing a lovely number that I am blessed this morning. So important to start our day on a good note, because that's how our day is going to actually transpire. And so let's have a look at trauma. What do we actually mean about trauma? What is trauma? What does it mean? What does trauma look like? What do we mean about trauma? And so trauma is actually an emotional response to a terrible event, like an accident, perhaps, rape, or a natural disaster. And we know that veterans have suffered from trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder. Immediately after the event, the shock and the denial are quite typical. And we know that there's a lot of trauma on the streets. There's lots of knife killings on the street. There's trauma in terms of people that have died of COVID-19 or have recovered from COVID-19. There's a prolonged recovery plan. The people that have experienced spasms and blood clots. People that have died of cancer or suffering from an illness, that's traumatic. And so it could be an incident, a terrible event, a natural disaster. We know about the Holocaust. That's traumatic. Slavery for 400 years. That's traumatic. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. That's traumatic. We know about so many disasters that has occurred in our lives and around the world. We have the disaster, what's happening in New Orleans in terms of the chaos that we have with our weather and global warming, and the aftermath effects in terms of what's happening in New York and in New Jersey in terms of the flooding that we've seen. That's actually a traumatic event where lots of people have actually lost their homes. And so longer term reactions include unpredictable emotions. So the long-term impact of trauma is extremely enormous. Unpredictable emotions, flashbacks, strained relationships, and even physical symptoms like headaches, nausea, depression, panic attacks, hypertension, and we've mentioned post-traumatic stress disorder. There's a list of symptoms that impact trauma-related abuse. And you know my story. I've overcome so much in terms of my trauma that I've experienced in the past. And so what is post-traumatic stress disorder? And so it's a condition of persistent mental and emotional stress occurring as a result of an injury or a severe psychological shock, typically involving disturbance of sleep and constant vivid recall of the experience with dull responses to others and to the outside world. That is actually post-traumatic stress disorder. And for me, I can actually resonate with that because I overcame panic attacks, as you know. I overcame chronic insomnia. I overcame a brain tumor. And there's lots of us out there that have overcome so many or going through these injuries, these psychological shocks to our systems. Perhaps many of us have been in abusive relationships that have shocked our system. It's persistent mental and emotional stress. And if you are in a toxic relationship, that's actually persistent mental and emotional stress. And we've talked about toxic relationships, whether it's family, friendships, or a personal relationship. We've mentioned how dangerous it is for you to remain in that type of relationship because it's actually going to contribute to your stress levels. It's going to impact on your well-being, on your health, both not only emotionally and psychologically, but also physically. As you know, this is our well-being and our spiritual show this Sunday. And welcome to the show this morning. And we're looking at trauma, and particularly in light of, I'm not sure if many of you have actually been tuned in to the independent inquiry into sexual abuse. And they found shocking failings across a number of organizations and cases of abuse, which has been perpetrated by religious followers. And as I mentioned, I have the amazing Denise Wise that joined me a couple of weeks ago, and she's going to be joining me this morning at 9:30. And she shared her journey in terms of the abuse that she suffered, in terms of being a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I shared something quite similar of being a member of a Pentecostal church where I was bullied into a way of thinking, into a way of belief, all hellfire, a way of belief that can actually impact on your well-being and your mental health. And as I mentioned in my previous shows, which you can actually see on my YouTube channel or on my page on Facebook, that the impact is enormous, because it impacted on, even I was mentioning on a previous show, dating. I remembered my first date and I was petrified of men because it was, I was actually abused in thinking that men were a danger to the female species because I was in a Pentecostal setting where we were told as women to stay away from men. And I don't know how these grown-ups, these adults, actually had wives or partners or children, because obviously they had sexual encounters, but it was dictated to me as a young person growing up that actually the male species are a danger to mankind. And I remembered having my first encounter with a young, good-looking man. I was petrified. And so that's just an example of how dangerous a doctrine or a belief system can actually entrap you, can actually enslave you. And it was quite traumatic for me, because later on in your life, it actually impacts relationships in terms of how you converse with the opposite sex. And so that's what we're talking about this morning. As I mentioned, the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse found shocking failings across a number of organizations and cases of abuse that's been perpetrated by religious followers. And just imagine that you're going to church, or you're going to the synagogue, or you're going to the temple, or you're going to a place of worship, and you should be protected, and you are actually in danger of those who are supposed to be actually safeguarding you. And so the report found that between the early 2015 to 2020, of all known institutions, of all the religious institutions in the UK where abuse had taken place, 11%, which actually equates to 443 instances, were committed within a religious organization or setting. And that is actually quite alarming, isn't it? That is quite alarming. 443 instances of abuse in a religious setting. Shocking. And so, as I mentioned, I was going to a religious setting. I mean, I do believe in the creator, the universe, but I refused to go to church because of my experience. I had a traumatic, emotional, abusive experience at the hands of those who were supposed to safeguard me. And so, I just refused to go to church, actually. And it's impacted on my elder kids too, because they also equally refused to go to church. And so for my younger two, I've kept them out of that. And I'm not disrespecting those that actually believe in going to church. That's good for you. It's worked for you. But I had a traumatic experience, and it's really impacted on my journey through my young adult life. And I'm happy to report that I've overcome that. And I've actually been invited to a church like a couple of years ago, and I actually went, and I quite enjoyed that experience. But for me, my church is actually my show on a Sunday mornings. And as you know, I'm actually a qualified transformational coach, as well as a teaching practitioner. I'm a member of a coaching body. And so when we have a conversation this morning, I just want to assure you that you're well covered and well catered for Denise Wise is an overcomer of traumatic abuse herself. She's going to be joining me. She's a musical artist and she's written so many songs, and also she's written some amazing books. So good morning to you this morning for those that are joining me for the first time. This is our mental health and well-being show. And as I mentioned, the report of child sexual abuse is actually prevalent in faith institutions across most major religious settings in the UK. And with the report accusing these organizations of blatant hypocrisy. So the report accused these establishments of blatant hypocrisy and moral failings. Can you believe this? And so, as I mentioned, so there have been 443 instances of abuse. And I'm going to read a couple of the accounts of that report to you this morning. So if you are joining me for the first time, just want to say good morning to you. Please share the show because, you know, some people are actually delusionized. They actually think that people that suffer from abuse are actually people that are perhaps, you know, not normal. People that, you know, have come from probably abusive childhood experiences, people that have come from unstable families. But no, we have veterans that have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. We have people that have lost loved ones that have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. And so the findings of this report is quite harrowing. I think there was a young boy who was about 8 years old. He was abused during Sunday school. And so can you believe it? You're bringing your son or your child to Sunday school, and they have been abused by those people that are supposed to protect our young ones. It's quite shocking, isn't it? And that's what we're talking about this morning. And so we have Denise Wise joining me at 9:30. She's off the videoing at the moment, so I'm not sure she's going to be joining me in a minute. Do share your experiences if you've been indoctrinated in a thought process, in a belief system, in terms of what you're supposed to believe and what you're supposed to be thinking. Then, you know, do share your thoughts. Has it enslaved you? Has it entrapped you in terms of your mindset? Because as we know, abusive or psychological abuse can actually impact on your well-being and your thought processes. It's actually quite dangerous, extremely dangerous. And I know that there was actually a report that was commissioned by the British Royal Commission in terms of Jehovah's Witness that Denise is going to be sharing with us later on, that found high levels of abuse within the Jehovah's Witness settings. And then the victims were wanting to report the abuse, and they used a scripture to disguise or to try to enslave the victims in not reporting that abuse, try to disguise that abuse by using a scripture to protect them. How dangerous is that? That they will use a scripture to protect their perpetrating behavior. That is actually quite dangerous. And that's what we're talking about this morning. And so if you're joining for the first time, welcome to the Angela Lee Show. And so trauma, what's the impact of trauma? Trauma actually impacts our self-awareness, especially our sensory self-awareness. And as we know, we were talking about neuroscience in a couple of shows, but the brain supports mental processes. The brain supports mental processes. Behavior influences the emotions, biology, and the mindsets of those around us. And so if we have, or if we are experiencing these persistent traumatic and emotional abuse, it's actually going to impact on not only our behavior, on how we behave. It's not only going to impact on our behavior, it's going to also equally impact on our emotions. It's going to impact also Hi, Denise. How are you doing?
Hey, Angela.
Welcome to the show, Denise. Again,
I'd get in.
you got rid of your guitar.
The subject of trauma. Helps me to deal with trauma, being silly.
Yes, being a child again. So important, isn't it? To have fun. To
I
have
tell
fun.
you.
You've
Yeah.
got flowers all around you, girl. You're looking good.
Ooh, look, I got my guitar.
And
I'm
you've
just
got
going to
your
play
guitar.
you something that I think is really beautiful, calming. It's Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Israel, or Is, he was called. He was in Hawaii. Why I've got dressed up like this. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean? That's how
So, Denise, welcome to the show. This is the amazing recording artist, Denise Wise, and the author of an amazing book.
Thank you.
Want to share your book again for us, Denise, to the listeners this morning?
Yes. It's Rising from the Ashes of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Just imagine that, rising from the ashes of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah. So it's like
Good
the phoenix,
Lord.
and one of my songs, I'm actually doing this, and I show a picture of a burning Bible. Sorry, don't want to be blasphemous, but sometimes you need to.
That is extraordinary. I love that. Yeah, that phoenix, because I've rose from the ashes. I tell you, from so much trauma myself, and my story. I was just going through a list of how trauma actually impacts people in terms of our self-awareness, brain, how we process things. And I know that you've gone through your own experience biologically and in terms of our emotions and our mindset, the impact of trauma. And in light of that report, that I know that we both have been reading that report, on that shocking report,
Sky
the
News.
independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, where they found shocking failings across the number of organizations that abuse was perpetrated by religious followers. And I think between 2015 and 2020, there were over 500 cases of abuse in religious settings. And I'm sure that's just that figure is not correct. It's much more.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the UK, right?
Yeah.
So exactly. You imagine. Did you want me to speak to the Australian Royal Commission?
Yeah.
There,
Throw in those figures, because please do.
Which is a bit of a pun, isn't it?
Yeah.
ARC. So the Australian Royal Commission was wrapped up a couple of years ago, but it was just being investigated when I was wrapping up my book. So I stumbled across it in the Facebook groups for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, where it was all going on, and I've been out of that for 25 years. But imagine I'm researching to finish my book, and I suddenly come across all this stuff that I didn't even know. And I mean, I've been out for so long. I just didn't want to join even the ex-JW Facebook groups, because I was still traumatized.
Yeah.
Traumatic enough writing the book. So I thought, I can't handle, hearing other people talking about it all the time. But actually, I wish I'd joined them sooner, because there was so much support, so much solidarity. And I think, obviously, if you're suffering from trauma, it's a really good idea to find an online supportive group. You can like a chat box or a Facebook group, as well as therapy. But anyway, going back to the Australian case, it was just awful how the organisation of Jehovah's Witnesses, called jw.org, and in every case, whenever they're dragged in front of the courts or in a commission inquiry, they withhold information as an organisation as long as they possibly can, and they get elders to destroy handwritten notes and things like that. So after they found there were about 1,000 unreported cases in the Jehovah's Witnesses of child abuse within the congregations. We're not talking about outside. And quite a few of those were elders, which is like the clergyman or the priest, and and ministerial servants are the next notch down. To add that there are no women allowed to be in leadership, so it's all men that they're talking to. And they found over 1,000 cases, and there's only about 1,000 congregations in Australia around the coasts. And if you think about it, that's like having one paedophile in every congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia, right?
Give me strength.
And if they're all going on, it's all going on behind closed doors, and they're just accepting their testimony that they're guilty and that they are repentant. That's the word they use. If the elders judge that they're repentant, they're allowed to stay. So any child that's already gone through the ringer basically has to sit in the same church or the same room where the meetings are 3 times a week. So that child has to go with its parents and sit in the same room as their abuser.
Good God.
And also the other thing they've changed over the years, if someone's done wrongdoing, and that they call it marked, this person's marked, but they're still in the congregation, they're not allowed to say who it is always or what they've done, right? Really? So there's other parents there. If you've got good elders, they'll warn the parents privately too. But maybe they won't. Do you know what I mean? So you might have children
really shocking, isn't it?
Exposed to these paedophiles multiple times before it actually comes to light. And the other thing that they castigated the leaders of the whole worldwide organisation, who are called the governing body of wrinkly young men, about 12 of them, right? There's about 8 million witnesses worldwide. There's only 12 patriarchal guys running the organisation who claim to be the mouthpiece of God. And they had to have one of those governing body in the final stages of the wrap up of the commission inquiry. And his face was just stony. He was being asked questions like, well, you might be using this Bible scripture, Deuteronomy 17:6, to say, at the hand of 2 or more witnesses, you can convict somebody of a sin or a crime like murder. But, don't you think it's cruel that if there's a child in the congregation that has only got themselves as a witness, because obviously paedophilia occurs behind closed doors in secret, and the person usually persuades the child not to tell mummy and daddy, or if it's their parents, obviously they've got no one to run to. So there's not often a second witness to the crime, right? Or the sin. Therefore, the child could go to the elders, but if there's not enough evidence for them, they don't go to the authorities. And they will say, we don't stop people from going to the authorities. But of course, you know what it's like, peer pressure. Nobody wants to be the one that snitches the organisation to the police, right? They don't want to do that because they know they get, kickback from that at some point in the future. So it's just a hornet's nest, and there's loads of court cases now. These inquiries, some of them have been successful. The English one failed because the organisation covered up all the evidence, and there wasn't to convict the organisation itself. So they might start another commission in England. I hope they do. So anyway, won't go on about it too much, but you can imagine how many thousands of kids have got trauma based on trusting in religious figures and then them not coming through when it comes to support. Support from the organisation, no support from outside counselling services because they're not reported, right? It's not reported to the government. So they just rely on the Bible as their comfort, which is not, there's the highest rate of suicide in the country is usually within Jehovah's Witnesses. It's higher level than the average population rates of suicide. Because, they've got nowhere to turn often, and they think there's something wrong with them rather than having the confidence that they can reach out to counselling services and things like that, So there you are. That's a cheerful subject for this morning.
For Sunday morning.
Yeah.
But what's quite shocking as well was that in the mosque, apparently in 2017, this is the IICSA report. They actually mentioned that in one instance, 4 children were actually sexually abused when they were approximately 9 years old, whilst they were being taught the Quran by a teacher in the mosque.
Yeah.
The perpetrator was convicted and sentenced to 13 years in jail. Can you believe it? And there was another incident of a young girl who was abused by a church volunteer. But when her mother disclosed this to the police, the church minister said that the abuser was valued and must be considered innocent until proven guilty. So it's actually confirming what you've said in terms of that scripture, that they use it for their defense. Yeah. How shocking is that?
Yeah, and the commissioner in Australia just looked at this governing body guy and just said to him, you've got, this is really cruel behaviour. Do you not have any feelings around this?
Yeah.
Whether it's right or wrong, whatever the Bible says or whatever your rules are, man-made rules are, do you not have any feeling for these victims? And they were shocked, actually, after it was wrapped up, that the Jehovah's Witnesses officially did not apologise to the victims. They were asked with other churches and organisations to apologise officially to the victims, and they refused.
Unbelievable. They refused to apologise.
Yeah.
Good God.
There's no mental, emotional support.
Oh my God, they refused to apologise. And these are leaders, church leaders, who are supposed to be leading us to the way of truth, to salvation, supposedly. How shocking is that?
Yeah, I think it's because they want to protect their name.
Yeah.
Well, they say it's Jehovah. Oh, we don't want any reproach coming on Jehovah's name, which is their God, obviously.
Oh, please.
But obviously it's not that. It's all about the jw.org protection and, the finances and things like that, because I think they've just lost charity status there now.
Which Have
they? Yeah. I think they're the first country to lose that. They've fought really hard over the decades to keep charity status because of tax and things like that. And also because they can use that ruling, like for priests, where they don't have to go to the police or the government, because they've got I can't remember the name of the dispensation that they have, where they, if someone confesses to a Catholic priest, for example, that they've murdered somebody, they are protected under this particular law from the priest is confidential. The priest doesn't have to go to the authorities. It's up to them, their conscience, I guess. But
oh my God, I know the report actually highlights a couple of failings and I know, as a teaching practitioner within schools and FE, that there's a safeguarding, so many safeguarding red tape that you have to go through, and even to actually stand inside a classroom, let alone inside a place of worship. I know that I'm hoping that perhaps after this report has exposed particularly religious organizations that I don't know how the government, or I don't know what sort of body that can actually regulate the religious organizations, but I do believe, I'm sure you will share that they need to be regulated in terms of safeguarding practitioners. For instance, how can you have an abuser within the settings of the church, and he's still allowed to sit amongst the people, and no one knows who he is? We know about people that have actually abused in society. They are immediately put on the sex register list, and if that person comes in their neighborhood, everyone in that neighborhood is actually alerted. You could actually go into Google, or there's a website where you can locate where these sex offenders are. And so for religious settings to, over years and centuries, sort of get off scot-free, That is
Yeah.
quite shocking, isn't it? And just imagine you're sending your grandchildren or your young kids to Sunday school or to
Mm.
the mosque to read the Quran, and
Yeah.
they are being sexually abused. I mean, good
Mm.
God,
I know. I mean,
shocking.
in the Catholic Church or even other
Yeah,
organisations,
they're worse.
might move the priest to another district, right? So in some ways, although that's not the solution to the problem, at least that child isn't continually traumatized by having to be in the same church as the abuser.
Oh my
Whereas the
God.
witnesses don't move anyone around, they just leave them. Either they disfellowship them if they feel they're not repentant. But of course, paedophiles are, able to lie so effectively that they end up being believed that they're truly repentant and that they'll never do it again. And of course, what's happened is they've had multiple cases still happening after they've been counselled by the elders.
Yeah.
And so the elders really are responsible for further abuse that's happened without safeguarding of children.
Good God. Good
Yeah. So,
God. And
yeah.
so I know that
That's
we
in
were
my book, by the way.
talking
I mentioned quite a lot of this in my book towards
in
the
your
end.
book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not my experience, but I just felt, that I needed to stand up and say something as a woman. And I also believe, in empowerment now for spiritual guidance from women and safeguarding from women in religious settings, because it's time to stand up, and we are known to be the nurturers. So why would we leave all of these, men in control to deal with trauma that they have no skills or official training to deal with? Why would we do that? And women are needed, in religious settings now to keep the balance and to nurture and protect, the group.
Yes, absolutely. And this is why we're doing the show this morning on the Spiritual
Yeah,
and Wellbeing Show,
yeah,
because we know we've both gone through our own journey, our own traumatic journey, and it's not stopped because it's a continuous journey. And we are here to support those that have gone through something quite similar in terms of within a religious setting or outside of that, and
yeah,
equally to support those people that are going through post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a disorder that is impacted by a series of events, traumatic events. Let's talk a bit about that, Denise, because I know that lots
yeah.
of people are not familiar with what that looks like. Do you want to share a couple of thoughts on that?
Well, you're thinking of other things that can cause trauma. I'm going back to childhood. So if you go for psychotherapy, which I did too, which actually helped me to leave the Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place, they will always take you back to maybe under the age of 5, because your nervous system and your brain and everything, your attitudes and beliefs are all programmed from early childhood before the age of 5, mostly.
Yeah.
So when people have traumatic experiences, it can be just that you had parents that screamed and shouted all the time at each other, and maybe you didn't experience that yourself, but if you're in an environment where that's happening, you can still be traumatized, like me.
Absolutely.
Because I've had various different forms of therapy after the psychotherapy over the years, because no one thing solves all problems, you see.
No.
So you're looking at me only discovering that I had suppressed PTSD maybe 2 years ago.
Wow. Just 2 years ago.
Yep. Because I'm quite a calm person
Yeah.
and I've happy nature, that's my default setting. You wouldn't
Yeah.
really know, and I didn't really know that I had PTSD. And I don't like labels particularly, but if you don't know that about yourself, it can just lie there and untreated. And the way I found out about my particular trauma, which I would say is parental dysfunction,
Yeah.
that I realised that suppressed PTSD was a thing, and that's I went for craniosacral therapy, and we've got a great practitioner here in Norwich. He's called Andrew Cook. I can put the link in, but he showed me that I couldn't tolerate a certain amount of I could only tolerate a certain amount of stress from triggers that I had. He's very sensitive and very tuned in, and he sort of reads, I suppose, the micro expressions when he asks you questions and so on. But he also is a hands-on practitioner. They can work, with the spinal fluids and the nervous system as well, around the head or the body.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I want you to watch this video clip, and it is of a cheetah attacking a springbok in Africa. And then he said, watch carefully what happens, right, when this cheetah closes in and he's got his teeth around the neck of this springbok or antelope. And then what you saw was it was lying on the floor, kicking its legs, and obviously its heart beating fast, these are all symptoms, of obviously high stress, flight. And then all of a sudden, before it even bitten into the neck, the animal went completely limp. And he said, watch the stomach. It's not moving, right? It's not breathing at all. And he said that springbok, its body is now flooded with opiates. It knows it can't get away. The adrenaline's not pumping now. And the opiates are the things that stop your heart beating and your lungs and shut you down, basically. So actually, when you watch these nature programs and you think, oh my God, that poor animal, it's going they can't feel anything. They can't feel anything because that's another expression of trauma, is that your body, you're numbed down. You don't experience what's actually going on anymore. And he said, you're like that because what happens is I've had lots of digestive problems over my life and sort of sensitivities. He said it's because your digestive system's a bit shut down because of the suppression of the trauma, right?
Wow.
In that sort of semi-alive state, which is probably a bit extreme to call me a walking zombie. You know what I mean? My automotive system, my nervous system, is protecting me so I don't feel the trauma.
Wow.
So usually you can see a typical fight or flight type of person that's got PTSD, because they'll be like having open panic attacks and very kind of touchy and maybe have anger and things like that. But the end of the scale is me.
So that's suppressed trauma.
I understood the power of expressing my particular emotions through song. And, we're going to know you're going to play a little clip from my forthcoming one, which is Set Me Free. And I actually do this amazing scream in the middle of this song, right, which is on that clip. Okay. And you have no idea how much I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
Because
that scream.
There is a form of therapy where you can do screaming therapy, and it does release. If you're like me and you don't get angry, if you can do a safe environment like singing a song or go in the field, they always say, don't they, and scream as you want. That really helps to release all that trauma.
Yes, and it's so important to release that trauma because, as we know so rightly, the body keeps scores. It's not going to go away, and it's going to be revealed in terms of, as you mentioned, probably irritable bowel syndromes, all sorts of things that are happening to us that we don't actually understand. Why is this happening? But it's happening because it's suppressed trauma. And so that's what we're talking about this morning on the show. This is the Angela Lee Show, and we're talking with the amazing recording artist, Denise Wise, and we're talking about overcoming trauma this morning. And so if you are out there and you've experienced trauma, you've got someone in your family, friends that have experienced trauma, then just keep it locked, share the show, because we are here to support you this morning. I'm just going to see if I can play that little number that you've sent me, Denise, while we'll give people the opportunity to share anything they want to share. Let me see if I can play it this morning. Oh my God. Oh, is it on? Oh, let's put the mic on. Turn that up a bit. Okay, that's a little clip of her music. And when is that coming out then, Denise?
Sometime soon. We just finished wrapping up the vocals, so you're just really in the next few weeks or so, I guess. But we've got the video done now, and yeah, it's that was fun.
Set me free. So
Yeah.
you know, so you're screaming out there, set me free. 25 years post trauma?
Yes, since I left Jehovah's Witnesses, it's 25 years.
And so 25 years is a considerably long time. And so this demonstrates to people how that journey looks like in terms of the process, because it's a process, isn't it, Denise?
Yes, we were talking about how it's layers of the onion. I think that you try something. It's not that it hasn't worked. It only addresses maybe one aspect. So, so the list of things that I was writing down about how to start dealing with trauma and then healing it is basic stuff like the kind of food you eat, the amount of sleep that you get, the amount of fresh air you get in nature. Is particularly grounding, and it helps the nervous system to settle down. Sitting in nature, if you can't walk very far, reduces the cortisol in the body, which is the stress hormone. You know, when you're overworking or you've got too much stress at home or you've been in lockdown for too long, you know, cortisol levels, if you sit in nature on a park bench, every 20 minutes that you sit there, it drops your cortisol levels down. So if you think, oh, I can't be bothered with all these fancy methods, I haven't got any money to go and have therapies and I can't go on retreats, you know, just go and sit in nature, and next to a tree would be great. And it actually lowers your levels of stress, just being in there.
And I was quite alarmed when I was doing some research myself, and that the levels of stress that you have in your body can actually produce cancer cells.
Yeah, that's right. So there's, you know, you're not going to get dietary advice or any holistic type of advice from your doctor. As we know, they'll look at you, see your symptoms, and give you pills, which you know they're useful, and I have taken for different periods of time recently, even. But I would say yes, I do go try and be in nature 2 or 3 times at least a week, if not more. And so diet, I'm quite careful with that, because obviously because of the digestive issues, I try and just stay to a diet that doesn't exacerbate my symptoms. So that's all self-love as well. These are healing from trauma is an act of self-love.
Absolutely.
What's right for your body and your mind. And so the more that you just do these simple things, the more you feel good about yourself, because you're looking after yourself, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we were both talking earlier on about different forms of therapy that you can have. I mean, those are basic things that's not actually going to cost you anything. Timeline healing is quite profound as well. I know that you've actually gone through that journey, haven't you?
Well, you know, I'm a bit of a hippie, so these are my go-to crystals that I would use. I'm a Reiki master, and I also do crystal healing, right? So, here you've got like an amethyst, and this is a beautiful green, is a very calming, healing color. And then you've got your rose quartz, all right? And I do timeline healing by accident sometimes, because sometimes you don't know what's going to happen. But I've had people say that they've had a life-changing experience, but it's not me. It's kind of like intention and just getting in the zone with somebody, intending that they heal. There's the power of the mind if you don't believe in spiritual energy, but I do. So I know, I feel that energy coming in through me as a sort of conduit. I'm not saying it's me. And people have just gone, oh. And some of the more bizarre experiences of dealing with healing traumatic past family lines, because it does go in families, doesn't it? Generations of trauma.
Yes, and I remembered on many shows we've talked about archetypes, things that have been passed down ancestral through the line. And yes, indeed, it's actually quite, it's ancestral trauma.
Right. So one example of that was
Sorry.
the other thing that I went to do in Costa Rica was a ayahuasca retreat, and that's taking plant medicine, right? This natural plant, and it's boiled up, with some other plants and made into this little, and you have that. And basically, stuff comes out. You never know what's going to happen, but it does actually root out traumas that are hidden. People see things in their childhood when they're on this stuff that they completely suppressed. And of course, if you read anything or watch anything about childhood trauma, you'll know your brain actually protects you from remembering the details. And that's what makes it a treat, because you don't even remember. As you get older, maybe something triggers a memory and it comes out, and you're like, and then people don't always believe you, because they just go, well, whose memory is foolproof? Nobody's. How can you say that? What proof have you got that it's ever happened? But it's a known thing. So anyway, this ayahuasca does actually tend to bring out memories that have been suppressed, and that didn't really happen to me as such, because I didn't have suppressed trauma from anything like abuse, physical abuse, because luckily that didn't happen to me.
Yeah, more emotional and psychological.
More emotional, psychological, and understanding, how this lifestyle that I was raised in had affected me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say, that's another thing. That's not cheap though, going over there to do ayahuasca.
Yeah, whatever you need to do. I know there's psychotherapy, and we also talked about even cutting the cord, how important it is to cut that cord with that abuser. Do you want to talk us through that? I mean,
yeah,
I know that you've done that recently.
timeline healing. Yes, I did a bit of work with a girl while I was in Costa Rica, Reiki, and she just said to me, "I'm seeing all my ancestors over your face." Well, she said afterwards, because we don't talk when we're doing the healing, right?
Yeah.
Not usually. And she said, "I saw my mother's face over your face, and then this other woman, which was my grandmother." And then she said, "I had a series of faces come over your face, like domino effect, in the past." So that's your ancestral timeline healing.
Yes.
It happened spontaneously. I wasn't aware until we discussed it. And then another spiritual practice, which would be more shamanic as well, because I'm drawn to the shamanic healing, is this visualizing of like a divine or a cords going right into your body in chakra places, in 7, it could be all the centers that they say are chakras. You can have these like ropes or these cords that attach you energetically to other people, especially if you've been abused. And what you do with that, there's a whole thing of lots of different things you can do, but for be simple, you can visualize those cords between you and this person, and they're a great big pair of scissors, right? And you send them love, and you just go, you can have your energy back. I'm keeping my energy, and I'm now cutting the energetic cords between us. And it's
Yeah.
surprising, actually, how much that releases trauma and tension, because you can wake up the next day and feel, wow, I feel
Yeah,
lighter.
absolutely. Yeah, and there's so many of us. I know we've talked on many shows that we've got this soul attachment with our abuser, particularly when we look at like abusive relationships.
Yeah.
You become codependent on that need for that person, which is
Mm.
quite toxic. And so I
Yeah.
think that cutting of the cord would be so significant in that in that circumstances. Because otherwise, you're going to be inevitably codependent on their energy
Yeah.
on that person, and
Or if
without
you
knowing.
free, you just attract somebody else who's going to do the
Yeah,
same until you've
yeah.
done the work, and
Until
that's what.
you've done the work, and we've talked about that. We've talked about
Mm.
karmic relationships, and
Yeah.
it's a part of trauma. All these things that we're talking about is a part of the process of trauma, because karmic relationships, whether it's friendships, family, because karmic could be your family, could be your friend, it could be something personal. Is until you've done that lesson, until you've dealt with that trauma, that unfinished business of your childhood, or whatever that significant event is, you're going to have a repeat of that lesson until it's learned. And we were discussing, Denise, about how sometimes some people always ask themselves, why do I keep attracting the same people in my life? And so we keep attracting because we're on that karmic wheel. So
Yeah.
we remain on this karmic wheel until we learn the lesson.
That's right. Yeah. So with one particular subject, I won't go into it, but I've had to have 5 partners who've reflected the way that my stepfather was,
Wow.
until I finally woke up and got the message that
Wow.
I need to heal the trauma from watching that relationship, and understand what was happening between my parents, and why they had that traumatic stuff going on. And there's a reason, they were poles apart, opposites, but they didn't have that strength of mind to be able to overcome that and heal from it. So they just kept on in this cycle of bitter argument, shouting matches. And I was exposed to that from the age of 10 till I got married at 28 and moved abroad. It was almost as if my subconscious was saying, get as far away as possible from this situation.
Yeah, I can resonate, I tell
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So I still didn't realize it, until really recently, that was still triggering me. So that I've had 2 things. I've had my father left before, obviously, that marriage with the stepfather. That I think my father had left 3 years before. So I've got the abandonment side of it, and then I've got that trauma in the upbringing till I was 28. And that was a suppressed, trauma for me, all of that stuff, because I deal with things with my head.
Yeah.
And to think things through, that's only part of the journey, right? So
Absolutely.
I started reading psychology, reading things like who is it? John Cleese.
Yeah.
He's just brilliant. He's written a couple of books, and one was families. I think the first one was families and how to survive them, and then the next book he wrote with his therapist Robin Skinner was life and how to survive it. And he's that you're attracted to the same people because you recognize them emotionally through the eye contact. So they actually have scientifically proven it through little tests, that when you meet somebody, within the first few seconds, you can recognize their pattern, their family pattern.
Absolutely.
And
So right.
Attracted to the same level of dysfunction as you have.
Yeah.
So you can never blame someone else, right? You can never go, oh, they were all for this, that, and they. Actually, you're just attracting the same level as yourself. So you need to keep.
Because you reflect yourself and you mirror yourself. Yeah, you mirror yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's something within you that's attracting it. And that something within you is that unfinished business. And so, similar to yourself is, I remember I was sharing with you that when I was having therapy a century ago, and I still look at the notes, believe me, my therapist asks me to write a list of the attributes of my current partner and my previous partners.
Yeah.
Do you remember that list I was sharing with you about? And also the main abuser. And I was quite, horrified that they all mirror each other, And so there was still work that needed to be done to stop that.
It will be, you can't beat yourself up, because we've done a hell of a lot of work in all areas to get to this understanding what's actually going on with the patterns.
Yeah.
And it's another thing it's one thing to know that releases quite a lot of trauma already, just being aware. And then the next stage is to do something about it,
Yeah. And you have to take action. Yeah, you have to take action, haven't you?
Yes, self-esteem, self-love, what is that? I talked about Teal Swan. She is somebody on YouTube, Teal Swan, who talks about how to overcome trauma and abuse a lot, because she was 6 years old when she was more or less sold into satanic slavery, child slavery. Wow. And she didn't come out of that until she was 19. She was literally trapped in that environment, when they're kept hidden, locked away, and used ritually. And so she's now obviously talking about her experiences, but also she's an amazing empowerment coach as well. And she talks about self-love, and she said, I never understood when people kept saying, you've got to love yourself before you can love another. And for me as well, I didn't understand what they were talking about. Well, how do you do that? And then I was watching the other day a really brilliant one. I think it's called Self-Love and the Trojan Horse or something. And she just said, all it is just listen to yourself, your instinct, and your gut instinct will tell you whether this thing, person, work, circumstances, anything is right for you.
Yeah, and we were talking about that. We go through life and we get that pull or that tuck in our stomach, and we ignore that pull, and we find ourselves. I know that we've talked at length about in precarious situations that could be avoided if only we listened to our intuition, because our intuition is always, in most eventualities, is actually right, because it's your signal, it's your warning, it's your protector, it's your guide.
I think this has always been a struggle for me, is heart over head, and then if you're a bit confused in the head, it's difficult to trust what your thoughts are telling you. So you've got to go back to the body. The body never lies. If your solar plexus, which is the just above your belly button, right? It's screwed up. If you're anxious and you can literally feel the butterflies in your stomach, that is your instinct telling you this is wrong. It's not right for me. It might be right for somebody else. It's not right.
Not
for
right for you. Yeah, it's not right. Very important to listen to that body. Yeah. We're going to take a bit of a break, everyone. Oh my God, what a subject, isn't it? It's heavy hitting, but it's something that we have to talk about, because at the end of the day, everyone else is talking about it. So we've been talking about this in past shows. And as I mentioned, Denise Wise is going to be joining me once a month. We're going to be dealing with this trauma abuse, because we're on our journey. And we've overcome so much. I know there's loads of people out there that are perhaps beginning their journey, or having suppressed trauma, or haven't actually perhaps started to talk about it. And as we know, it's so important, which is why I do the show, for us to talk, which is why NHS has talking therapies. So important for us to communicate and talk, so we don't suppress our trauma, because we know that it causes a disease called depression, which is suppression of our feelings, of our thoughts, of our thinking. So important for us to have a chat and to have a conversation. So this is the Angela Lee Show. We are streaming live on ellensoulradio.com, also live on StreamYard, on my YouTube channel, Angela Lee. So don't forget to subscribe. And I know that Denise is going to be putting it on her YouTube channel as well, Denise Wise. And so we're going to have a break, and I'm going to see you in a bit. And if you have any questions that you want to put to us, to Denise or myself, then feel free. This is a conversation that we're having. We know it's deep, but guess what? Mental health and wellness is deep. And so, hey, let's play this number and have a dance. Woo! I love my Afro beats.
Oh, yes. I love African music. My mother was raised in South Africa, and I've just got this affinity with the tribal beat.
Because since then, when my life don't make sense, anyhow, you still remain my friend until now. Now I you love me so.
The universe loves us no matter what. Power. Higher power. Woo, he loves us and we should love ourselves.
Yeah.
You have to go dancing, you know, Denise.
Oh, yes, you have to. When I come down to Kent, I've got family down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find somewhere good to go.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting the old trauma out the body. Dancing, singing. Oh yeah, by the way, got the memo. I'm wearing a shirt. And you're wearing a shirt. And we didn't know. We didn't plan.
We didn't know.
Last time we were wearing little tank tops, you know, because it's hot weather. And now we're in.
Amazing.
Still showing a bit of cleavage though.
Yeah, you can't see that.
Irreverence on a Sunday morning.
Want to say good morning to Everton, Steve Moyes, Sonia Hull, Angie Hayes that are listening on Facebook or watching on Facebook Live. To all the Ellen Soul Radio listeners, good morning to you. Self-love.
No, nothing's going to repress us. We still love life. We still know how to be happy.
Yeah, despite everything. Woo!
That glass is not only half full, that glass is full up.
Hey!
I've got my tropical bottle with me.
Oh, wow.
Everything's got a match, you see. Don't worry, it's only water.
Hey, don't you just like Afro beats? I tell you, it's within me. I love it. And so I want to say happy birthday again to my sweetie. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, honey.
Happy birthday.
Mwah! Love you lots. And so, yeah, it's the Angela Lee Show. Good morning to you. For those that is joining for the first time, we're talking about how to overcome trauma, traumatic events, traumatic incidences, particularly whether it's either physical or emotional or psychological trauma. And I'm here with the amazing recording artist, Denise Wise, and the author of an amazing book. And just shout it out again, Denise, your book.
Rising from the Ashes of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Rising from the Ashes. And where can our listeners get that book?
Lulu.com.
Lulu.com. I remember our previous show that, yeah.
Not under my name. This all things, because she's a Egyptian goddess in Isis, and I know it's got negative associations, but I went to Egypt a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I was just stunned by the equality of their gods. You know, there was Isis and her partner Osiris, a highly venerated batch of women, female gods and goddesses. and they were equal in those days. There wasn't this patriarchy thing going on there, and I loved it. So I really looked into it, and I thought, why aren't we all recognizing that we've all got something different to give, and no one energy, male or female, is better than the other. And so I chose that name, Isis, all things, for that reason.
Okay, so you can get her book on Lulu. And you know what I like about people? People have different belief systems. They have different thought processes, and so long as that thought process is on a higher level in terms of finding balance and processing and life in terms of living that good life, and it's not actually causing harm or injury or anything evil, then I would say an evil vendetta to anyone, then I will embrace that, because I've got my own thought process, I've got my own belief systems, and I can happily say, and along with Denise, is that I'm no longer enslaved in terms of my mindset, in terms of my thinking, because as you know, my story, I was raised in a Pentecostal church, and I was told that I was going to hell if I even look at a man. I couldn't wear makeup. I couldn't wear trousers. We couldn't have friendships with the opposite sex. I mean, we spoke about that in our last show. We weren't even allowed to date, and it was quite toxic. It was a toxic environment, and I managed to overcome that. You know me. I'm me. And good morning to you, Jackie.
I mean, you've done so many amazing things. You've written lots of books, haven't you? You've become a counselor, teacher. It's just you're such an inspiration. You really are.
So much. And I think we go through things in life so that we can actually help others. That's the reason why we go through it, so that we can actually lend that support of what we've managed to overcome to support others. Good morning, Jackie. And I met Jackie on Friday night when we were all partying down, Jackie? We had a good time there in Bromley. And we're talking about how we can actually overcome trauma. It's good to have a conversation, because that's what we're having in the show. Very important, because we mentioned on so many shows, the reason why we stay stuck in depression, in repression, is because we don't have that conversation. We don't communicate. We don't talk about things openly in an open forum, because guess what? The perpetrators are doing their things perhaps in secret, but now it's been exposed openly. And so it's so important for us to overcome our trauma. And so we want to just give a couple of things again. Just want to count a couple of things in terms of self-care, Denise. We talked about self-care is all about how you take care of yourself, and we talked about self-love. And we cannot give love to others. We can't have a healthy relationship with our family, with our friends, with our significant other, unless we first love self. Love yourself. I mean, wasn't there a scripture that says, love your neighbor as you love yourself? And so if you don't love yourself, you can't love your neighbor, isn't it?
That's right. And I think that we talked about shadow work, and that's a term, a bit of a buzzword now in the spiritual community. And that's about people who put themselves forward to help others, but they haven't done the shadow work on themselves as a healer. And the problem is with that is that it's another distraction from yourself, is helping someone else. So you have to be really aware of your ego. I want to make myself feel better because, I've been helping other people, therefore I'm a good person. And that's the way I was raised, that we have to preach to as many people as possible.
Self-sacrifice yourself.
And that's your way of feeling good about yourself, right? So I had to unlearn all of that. And realize that actually it's not being selfish to show yourself regard and self-love first. Heal yourself first.
Honor yourself first.
You can give to others. You've got something to give out of the pot. Otherwise, you're giving on you're going to run empty at some point.
Actually, yes. You've got to fill your vessel up. Jackie is saying that it's so true. Just want to highlight her comment. So true. You need to be able to live yourself others, you will be able to appreciate love and affection from others. Absolutely. And so you have to, self-love is all about loving self. It's all about putting yourself first. It's all about being selfish. It's all about not egoistic, but put yourself in high regard. Treat people how you want to be treated. And so if you don't want to be treated terribly, then why are you going to be treat someone, you know, in a nasty fashion? Why would you do that when you would not like to be reciprocated in terms of that type of love or that type of toxic energy? And so self-love is so important. Talking, communicating is so important. Retreats.
Yeah.
Denise.
Retreats. I've talked about the one in Costa Rica, which is a bit high end. I had a bit of money come in, so I was able to use that in fact to but there's all sorts of treatments and therapies in between. Another retreat I went on, which was early days after coming out of the Jehovah's Witnesses, was a woman, the woman within. It's like a worldwide network. And I went to this woman within 3-day retreat over a weekend.
Yeah.
And I think it cost about £600 at the time. It was maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
That was the best £600 I'd spent, you know, forever, really.
Yeah.
Because it was on that path of being in a safe environment. I think there were 50, but it was all women at the time, because the male version of that, they have, you know, with the empowering the male in a spirit sense, they have that separate, so that you can do the inner work in a safe environment. And they got me to focus on anger. And I sort of thought, that's interesting. How can I be angry? I don't know how to be angry, really. But they did the old thing, you know, when you get the tennis racket and you beat the pillow and you feel like an idiot because you're doing it in front of 50 people trying to get angry and you're not angry about anything. And all of a sudden, I was sort of whacking this pillow and the adrenaline came up, right? And they had a coach there going, "Come on, Denise," and she was repeating things from my childhood to get me riled up. All of a sudden, I tell you what, that rage came up through my body. I could feel it go up through my neck, you know, like when your blood vessels go boom, boom, boom. And you know, when they say you've seen red, you see red about something. It literally happens. I had a red mist come to my eyes, and I was like, that's it. And then she said, "I want you to scream and shout at me to go away." And so I came into that with this therapist and all these women witnessing this. And I just bellowed at the top of my voice in this massive, great big hall. And it was like ringing around the rafters. And she went, "Okay, you've done it now. Well done. Congratulations." And I just felt on top of the world. I was like, woohoo, I'm buzzed up now, because I'd released all this suppressed trauma and tension just by enacting it safely with a therapist. So I would really recommend that. What else have I done? I've done creative writing workshops as well.
Because writing is so important, isn't it? Because when you write, you actually release all that pain. Because I remembered talking with Dawn Crystal on previous shows that sometimes how you can overcome your trauma is by writing that letter to the abuser that you don't necessarily have to post, but you're writing it down because you're releasing all that negative energy, you're releasing all that pain, and you're writing it. And then as soon as you write it, you can actually throw it away or burn it, because it's a form of release. And if you want to send it to them, then that's your option. But so writing is so important, and which is why I've written my first book was about overcoming trauma. You can get it on Amazon, and it's called Finally in Love with Myself. And because like you, I actually struggled with self-love, which is quite shocking, I know, because I'm so gorgeous.
Exactly. You'd never believe it.
But it was because of my childhood. You know, it was because of trauma that I experienced in my childhood and in my toxic marriage and relationships. And so it was because of that. And so, you know, you could be actually you know, you can put yourself out there and people will be thinking, wow, you know, you would never struggle from low self-worth because you look great, you're amazing. So that can be quite deceptive.
Right. Yeah, we know how to put a mask on, don't we, sometimes?
Yeah, and people can hide behind that, can't they?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, my process was enrolling for an art class, silk painting, when I was in Switzerland, and getting really into that, and then ending up working and teaching silk painting in Switzerland. And then I did the music. I came back to the UK and I ended up working in the music industry, which is what we talked about a month ago.
Yeah.
And I started writing the book because everyone was saying to me, you should tell your story. You should tell your story. Why don't you write a book? I was like, well, that wasn't something that I ever planned to do.
Yeah.
I struggled a bit with it, but I did it and I published that.
Well done you. Well done you.
But I've got another book actually, which I haven't told you about yet.
Okay.
It's written since I've been up in Norwich, Norfolk.
Yeah.
And it's called Past Lives Matter. That's the word type.
I like that.
Yeah, controversial at the moment.
Yes.
But basically, it's also, if we're going to take this onto the other end of the spectrum from just looking after your body and so on, the other end of that would be looking into my belief of past life trauma and how that can get handed down through different lives as you come down through the centuries.
Absolutely.
Belief that hundreds of past lives, many of them have been really traumatic.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we talked about that on the show, archetypes. And we've got past lives of, I mean, you know, for my community, 400 years of slavery is traumatic. Yeah. And that's something that we've experienced. And we're still experiencing the aftermath of that. That's quite traumatic. That's traumatic. As we mentioned, we've got the Holocaust. We've got so many people experiencing so many different things in terms of past life. And so for people that are thinking, oh, you know, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in past lives and stuff. But guess what? The fact that we've gone through so many traumatic experiences that's actually impacting on our now would suggest that actually we need to do some inner and some shadow work in terms of, you know, overcoming that.
Well, you can do this at whatever level you want to. If you don't believe in spiritual things, they've proven that you can hand out trauma down, say, from the Nazi times or when there's been famines, that you as a mother, when you get pregnant, you can actually pass down alterations in the cells, like a poverty mentality type of thing.
Oh yes, definitely.
You can pass it down physically to the next generation.
Absolutely.
They can show food, you know, weird relationships to food can come to having come from an ancestral pattern of maybe, you know, starving to death and things like that. But that can physically be passed down. So even if you don't believe in a spiritual level of passing things down, it's actually happening, whether you like it or not.
I mean, it's similar to it's similar to alcoholism or people's substance abuse, and it's like a past life activity where, you know, my father was hooked on drugs and substance abuse, and my grandmother and my, you know, my great grandparents. So physically, if you don't believe in the spiritual, you can see it in the physical. Most definitely.
That's right. So there's lots of different methods if you do think about it being a spiritual journey and that we're here for a reason, is to remember. So meditation would be the biggie, you know, where you get in touch with your subconscious and you allow things to come up to be healed. And if you feel, oh, I can't meditate, I can't focus, then take up playing an instrument or singing or writing or sitting in nature, all the things we've already talked about today. Those are also ways of meditating, but maybe in a bit more of a active way if people can't sit still. And to be honest with you, when I have really bad patches of anxiety or depression, I can't sit still and meditate. It's the last thing I can do.
Yes.
So I will actually, breath is the most important thing.
Breathing is so important. Yes.
Yeah, and if I sing for a half an hour a day or an hour a day, I'm breathing deep into my diaphragm to take the
Yeah.
breath so
Yeah.
that I can sing effectively to the end of the sentence. You're taught as a singer to open your rib cage even round
Yes.
to the back. You can
Yeah.
actually take air at the back of your ribs as well, which the opera singers would have to do.
Yeah.
And you know what? You feel amazing after you've done like half an hour even of singing.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
really it raises all the serotonin levels, and all the good hormones can then
Yes.
kick in as well. So it's got
Definitely
so
raises your vibration. I love music.
many.
Play music literally every day. My young teenagers, I love their music. It's a bit weird, but I do love their music, and we play music all the time. Singing, playing music, breathing is so important. It impacts your neurosystem, your brain activity. It slows down those stress levels when you take a deep breath. The practice of mindfulness, I practice mindfulness. Think what you're thinking about. Your thoughts, analyze your thoughts, think about your thoughts. And also, like we did this morning, positive affirmations, chanting, doing some mantras, sending some mantras out, positive affirmations, and do them routinely. They really help. That's a part of. We're giving you some tips.
I've got one of those Reiki drums with
Yeah,
the skin one, on stretched out.
yeah.
And just doing that, I mean,
Tapping
my
on that.
timing isn't very good. The people that I work with, Running Zombies has been producing me my videos recently, and I've been working with David Donnelly we've got a band called Peaceful Cacophony, and both of them are like, oh, your timing. So they said, get this drum and just flipping learn how to time and sing. I don't know why, but I find it really difficult. But when you do it, it's really calming, actually.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so just to learn to go with the rhythm and get into that.
yeah.
Some people take the drum and then they start just to do that chanting. And if you think you're a terrible singer, just hum. That's not going to disturb anybody in your you know what I mean? You could do that, but you're still getting the benefit of the breathing and the vibration going through your body.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
if you're a guitarist or something, you can feel especially if you've got acoustic, you can feel the vibration of the music, and that is calming. And I know, that's something that you can use that as a tool, to express, not just express yourself, but also to get rid of tension in the body. And
and we've also mentioned earlier on in the show, for those that missed that section, that even going out there in nature, sitting amongst the trees, will help in terms of your well-being and your health. It's so important. We're just sharing some tips and some strategies on how just practical things that you can do that's not going to cost you anything. That's in terms of overcoming your stress levels or your trauma. Most definitely seek a therapist or a psychotherapist. Some people seek spiritualists. Whatever you need to do, what works for you, do whatever works for you. Whatever you're comfortable with, then just do that. We're giving you some tips here on the Angela Lee Show. And as I mentioned, I'm speaking here with the amazing recording artist, Denise Wise, and the author of an amazing book, Rising from the Ashes of Jehovah Witnesses, that is available on Lulu. You can get that book. I know that she's talked about a new book that she's writing, Past Lives Matter, so we can actually talk about that on another show. And so we're talking about how you can actually overcome trauma. I've got a book that I wrote co-wrote with a colleague of mine, Is Life a Cruise? That's also equally talking about trauma, because the lady that I was writing that book with, she was overcoming kidney cancer, and that's quite traumatic, when her family thought that she was actually going to die. And Is Life a Cruise is also available on Amazon. So we're talking here, we're experts because we've actually overcome, we've gone through it, we've passed through it, we've written about it, We're talking about it. Put any questions that you have for Denise, even after the show, if you want to listen to the replay, put any questions, reach out, because we're here to support you. So Denise, new material. So you've got this Past Life Matter, you've got Set Me Free, that's going to be completing soon. Anything else? Ooh, busy woman. That's enough, isn't
it? Co-writing with David Donnelly since last June, when the lockdown was in full force. So it's going to take us over the next year to release all the songs that we wrote together, which is 12.
Yeah.
Some of them are from our back catalogue, where we've not really done anything with them at the time.
Yeah.
And we want to give it that alt rock pop sound, with the album that I've written with David. And then I'm working with Adam Redfern from Running Zombies, who is talented. So he has different vibes. At the moment he's doing electronica sort of dance tunes and light uplifting danceable tunes on electronica. And then he's been working to film my latest video, which is what you're saying about being in nature. Well, imagine being in nature and recording a music video. I mean, how you couldn't get any better for me,
It's getting higher than that.
So we're out there on the sand dunes at Winterton-on-Sea. It's so beautiful. And we got there for the sunset, and I think I mentioned that last time.
I think I saw that on your Facebook page,
We went to finish it last week because Adam was staying for a week. And so we finished the Set Me Free vocals, which he's mixing. And we finished part 2 of The Sun God. All right. The day that we chose to go up there, it was 19 miles an hour wind.
Okay, wow.
The sea was like choppy, huge waves. You've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do a video in a skimpy long t-shirt dress, right? In really, really, really more challenging to have this wind, and my hair's down because I wanted to have my hair down. So I've got horizontal hair. And I'm trying not to have a wardrobe malfunction. Obviously, luckily, the t-shirt dress is tight enough for it not to blow up. Because you can imagine. I've already embarrassed myself recently with wardrobe malfunctions at my age. It's just disgraceful. I really don't want to record that for all eternity. So luckily, Adam's a really good editor, so he'll edit out all the bits that don't work.
All the bits you don't want to see.
Never act with animals, children, or the weather. Because last time we was filming, it was like 30 degrees temperatures, and we were like powdering our noses under the hot lights, of the video. And this time it was completely opposite. So I don't know how he's going to manage to make those two fit together. But anyway, that's coming out soon as well. So looking forward to seeing that.
Wonderful. What an amazing woman, isn't she? Multitask woman like myself. We reflect who we attract. Just imagine, we were saying that we didn't plan this, but we're both wearing shirts. So hey, and it's yellow. So hey, we are attracting.
This shirt is I acquired it. It was to do something to do with a funny song that we've written, which is a proper rock song, and it's about a traumatic experience of somebody that I know who was not sent to boarding school as such, but it was a remand school, and I wrote this song about just what it was like being the person that wasn't listened to or understood and was sent to a remand school when they absolutely didn't deserve it at all. And that trauma staying with you. I think my mother never really recovered from being in boarding school either. And many friends that I've got have told me that their boarding school experience, even if it wasn't abusive, it just reinstated in their mind that their parents didn't care. Even if the child thinks, oh my,
thinks that you've been sent away. I was talking about that with my daughter.
It's all about. It's like the naughty thing, right? So I thought, right, I'm going to do a video with me and just doing this song about recovering from trauma and the idea in the song is to express how you can move on. So I've got this character who goes to this school with a big pin, and it's called an inflatable boy, right? So it's an inflatable boy who goes to an inflatable school, and everything's inflatable, but he gets so angry about the way he's been misunderstood that he gets a massive, great big pin, and he goes to school and he pops the school, he pops the teachers. I know it sounds crazy, but it kind of works. So I've got this whole thing in my mind about being in a schoolgirl's outfit. And I don't know how I'm going to do the inflatable thing, but that could be work that one out. It's all expressing, isn't it? It's expressing how you can come through it. Then you can stand on a stage and show, and express yourself and and say, well, look, I've achieved something.
Absolutely.
I'm writing about things, but I'm turning it around and making it into something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, it's so lovely to have you on the show again, Denise. You're such a blessing, I tell you.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, we're going to be doing this once a month. If we can push it for twice a month, we'll see. But at the moment, it's once a month. We're going to be talking about how you can overcome trauma. We're going to be sharing some tips and tools, our books, our music, whatever we do. We're women and we're using our feminine power to expose, to release, and to have that final outcome for you, that positive outcome for you, for women and men. We're not discriminating here because we have our unique masculine side as well. Last minute thoughts, Denise, before you go.
Well, yeah, yin and yang, that's what you're talking about. We've all got the yin and yang, but sometimes we feel more comfortable with one or the other.
Yeah.
The aim is to be a bit of both, really, and get it in balance. But
absolutely,
the things that we're writing and talking about and singing about, some of it's angry, some of it's about love and nurturing and having fun.
Having a laugh. Yeah. And we've agreed that me and Denise, we're going to meet up. She's got family in Kent, so we're going to meet up, and we'll video us dancing together. Don't worry, you're going to see us doing our thing.
I edit that first before we put it on.
So Denise, many blessings for the week ahead.
You too. All right.
And be good to yourself. And, to the listeners, thank you for joining us this Sunday, sunny Sunday morning. I understand, Denise, we're going to have like a heat wave on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Temperatures are going to be like 31 degrees. So hey,
I can't wait.
I mean, good God. So it looks like we have to get our bathing suits out again.
Cleavage is coming out. Woohoo!
I'm going to end with a lovely song. I think I'm going to end with that song that I started with because I love it. Positive affirmations. I am blessed. Laters, everyone. Woo! Thank you, Denise.
Thanks for watching. Lots of love.
So blessed. Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed.
Thank you for joining me this morning. We have Anthony B on his 80s show following after me on ellensoulradio.com. We have On the Sofa with Esther later on this evening, so keep it locked to ellensoulradio.com. And you're going to see me again next Sunday between the hours of 9 and 11 with our spiritual and well-being show. Saturday with our entrepreneurial and business show. So have a good week and know that you're blessed. Do whatever works for you. Whatever works for you, do it for you. And be happy. Have fun. And I'll see you next week. Woo! Thank you for all those that have joined me this morning. All the listeners. We're blessed, Lord.
Say my mind is up there.
Woo!
I we go come and say my life go remain the same. Oh no. I said to do the one. There's no way I know to come up with a testimony. Oh yeah. People are falling over something to favor me. Now every day I elevate. Oh.
Every day I'm elevating. Oh.
I shine. And there's nothing that the devil can do. Oh, you got nothing on me. I am blessed.
Woo!
Oh, no.
So blessed.
Everything I lay my hands upon is blessed.
If you're just joining us, you can listen to the replay. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel where all the inspirational shows are posted. And that's Angela Lee. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a good week and remain blessed.